Okay, there we go. All right, we are live. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Welcome, everybody. Good to see everybody. My name is Eric F. King, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm always honored to speak on behalf of Digital Mentors because Digital Mentors has been a life-changing experience for me. Right, I joined the community a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, just to learn how to market my business online. And I've learned so much since then. Okay, so much since then. So I'm excited to be here with you. My name is Eric F. King. I'm a sales and leadership coach. I am one of the Rockstar clients with Digital Mentors, and I help entrepreneurs triple their sales and boost their income without being pushy or salesy. And today, I'm going to be talking about how to use stories to sell your offer. And I'm so excited about this because I wish 20 years ago someone shared this information with me, right? So I would stop focusing on the facts and the benefits and start talking about stories. So I'm gonna dive in. Thank you so much, David, for joining us. Thank you. And I'm going to give you 10 elements of an effective story. But before I do that, you guessed it, I'm going to tell you a story, right? So years ago, when I was in college, I went to college at Temple University in Philadelphia. And after graduating from college, I wanted to get a job in advertising. Okay, I was a marketing major. I wanted to get a job in advertising or something fun like that. And I was offered a position by a company called Xerox. Okay, Xerox was a Fortune 100 company. It was like Google is today, like Apple, right? So it was a very well-known company. And I was offered a position with them, and I was so excited because I was young, in my only early 20s. But the problem is they put me in sales, and I was disappointed. I was so disappointed because I did not want to be a salesman. Like, I didn't even like salespeople. I'm a nice guy. I figured salespeople aren't nice people. So I was really disappointed. So I called up my dad, who was a realtor, and I told him, I said, Dad, I have good news and bad news. He said, What is it? I said, Well, the good news is I was just given an offer by Xerox, and they were known to be one of the top companies. And he said, That's great. So what could be bad about that? I said, The bad news is they put me in sales and I don't want to sell anybody. And he started laughing because he said, That's actually good news all the way around. Because when you learn sales, it can help you in anything you do in life, right? So he convinced me to take the job and be happy and be happy about it. So I did. Welcome, Mark Smith. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. So, anyway, I started the job. Okay. And 60 days into working for Xerox, I hadn't made one sale. That's right, not one sale. At the time, they let you sell paper and they let you sell toner and other supplies like that. Guess what? I couldn't even sell paper. That's how bad I was. I couldn't even sell paper to people. Hi, Coral from England. Welcome. So, so things weren't going too well for me, right? So I called my dad again. I said, "Look," I said, "Dad, I'm failing woefully, right? And I just want to go ahead and quit so they don't fire me." And he said, "Don't do that." He said, "Find someone that sells the way you would like to sell. Okay, maybe someone that's not pushy or salesy, and learn from them because sales is a learned skill." So I met a guy, his name is Brian. He was the top sales rep in the whole region. And I asked him if I could shadow him. And shadow is a fancy word for saying, Can I follow you around? Okay. So I followed him around and I took notes. So I had a pen, I had a pad. There were no iPads or iPhones back then. So I just had a yellow pad, right? Writing pad. And I was ready to take notes, right? So we started going to these different accounts, these different companies, and I noticed something interesting. He wasn't actually really selling the way I thought selling was. He was getting to know people, right? He would meet you, he would get to know you. He would see a picture on your desk of your wife and say, "Oh, your wife is beautiful." And he would see a picture of your dog and say, "What's the name of your dog?" And he just gets to know people, and people liked him because of that, right? So we're going to talk about that. Know, like, and trust, right? So he would get to like them or get to know them. and vice versa. And then he would get into business by saying something like, so what do you like most about your copiers? So they would tell him, what they like most. And then he would say, so what challenges are you having? And then they would say something like, well, our copier sometimes it jams and we're not able to, make the copies. We have to wait for the guy to come fix it. And he would say, really? So how long do you have to wait? And then they'll say, well, maybe an hour or two. And he'll say, really? So how does that affect you? So you see what he's doing? He was magnifying the problem, right? Finding out all their problems. And then once he did that, then he would recommend a copier to fix their problem. And they would say, sure, they'll just sign. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This is amazing, right? And he's a nice guy. And then one day we went to this company. I'll never forget it. This big company. We went to this company. Let me see if I can actually put some of your comments up here. I believe I can. Let's see. Okay, 1 second. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not yet. Okay. Anyway. All right. So back to my story. So we went to this company, and it's a big company, and we met with these decision makers, right? We were in a room, and there was this big conference table, right? And Brian did his presentation, and after the presentation, Brian said to them, he said, well, Canon is taking good care of you. Canon was our competitor, number one competitor. He said, they're taking good care of you. So what I'll go ahead and do is give you my card. If you ever have any questions, or you ever want to look at your copiers and reevaluate, if you want to change any of them, then give me a call, right? I'll be glad to help you. And I'm there for you anytime you need. And we walked out. So I went up to Brian and I said, Brian, why didn't you try and sell them on something? We have so many copiers, you could have sold them. And he said, Eric, he said, anytime you meet with a prospect, you want to leave them better off than you found them. And Canon has given them such a great deal that we can't match it. So I'm not going to try and sell them on our offer if our offer will not help them. It will actually hurt them. And you don't want to hurt your clients, even if you're going to make money. So he said, what you want to do is you want to create goodwill by giving them your card, your information, and when they're ready, they'll get back with you. Or they'll refer people to you and they'll buy from you. And I said, that is brilliant. Wow. So I said, so you're basically like a compassionate seller, like you're helping people. He said, yeah. I said, wow. That's when I came up with the idea of compassionate closer, right? Compassionate closer. So that's my story, but it doesn't end there. What happened was, in the next 18 months, I became one of the top sales reps in the whole region, top 3. And I was going on all the trips, won the trips and getting the awards and making too much money for a 20-something-year-old because I spent it all. And it changed my life, just learning this, right? And then later I went on to start businesses, and now I help entrepreneurs sell their offers. All right. So I wanted to start with a story to give you an example. All right. I'm going to give you 10 tips here today, 10 elements of a story. Now, you don't have to have all of these in every story, but you want to make sure you incorporate some of them. All right. The first thing is you want your story to be inspirational. You want it to inspire people to do something, to take action, right? So with my story, it inspires people to realize that they can learn how to sell, even though they're not a salesperson or they don't like sales right now, right? It inspires people to take action. So that's number one. You want to inspire people, right? Number two, you want to persuade people, right? You want to persuade people by telling them a story instead of convincing someone to buy something that they're not sure if they want, right? Why is it that coaches use stories, right, to their athletes, right? I coach 11-year-olds in soccer, and I'm always telling about stories of other players that were in their situation, right? Coaches use stories. Pastors use stories, right? Even politicians use stories. Like people use stories to persuade, right? The best way, the number one way to persuade your prospects to buy your offer is through a testimonial, which is a story, right? You want them to hear about how other people have used your product or your service, right? That's powerful. I had a client. Welcome, Stephanie. Good to see you. Welcome, Anthony. Good to see you. I had a lady that I met a few months ago, and we met on Zoom, and she said she wanted to join my coaching program. So I said, okay. I said, have you been following me? Did you watch my videos or anything? She said, no. I said, okay. I guess you on my website? She said, no. I said, well, you read my book? She said, no. Like, okay. So why do you want to join my program? She said, because I saw a video of a lady that never sold before. And she was talking about how you helped her sell her offers. I said, really? She said, yeah. So think about it. All she saw was a story, and that was powerful to her, right? So you want to make sure you tell more stories about your offer. Tell story. And if you don't even have a story yet, find a story of a similar offer and how it's helped people, right? So if you're on weight loss, right, and you haven't actually helped anybody lose weight, then find a story of someone that's lost weight using something similar to what you offer, right? So that's very persuasive. All right. Number 3, make sure the story is relatable. It's relatable, right? If you are in insurance and you're talking to someone that's younger, maybe in their 30s, don't talk about how your offer, your service helped a guy that was 79 and passed away, because he's gonna think, yeah, that's not for me, right? So you want to make sure your story is relatable. The story I gave you, if you went to college before, you can relate to it. If you started a new job, you can relate to it. If you started a job you didn't like, you can relate to it, right? So make sure it's relatable. I know a lady who she's over 50 and she coaches people over 50 to do more videos online. And it's powerful, So when I asked, I said, so how do you get people over 50 to do more videos because they didn't grow up doing videos? She said, it's simple. I show them YouTube channels of people that are 60 and 70. And I said, that's brilliant, because they can relate. All right. So that's number 3. Number 4, make sure there is some kind of time and location, right? Put them somewhere, right? So when I told you about my story, I put you in Philadelphia when I was in my 20s. So you may have imagined Philadelphia. You may imagine me younger, maybe with hair, because I had some good hair before I had to shave it off, right? So put a time on it or a location, all right, and then make sure it's your story is specific. One of the ways to make it specific is to have dialogue in your story. So in my story, I talked to you about how I was talking to Brian and how Brian was talking to me, right? So you can see us there having this conversation, this dialogue, right? All right, so that is number 5. All right, so now I want to tell you about a man who grew up in Africa, okay? He, when he was in his early 20s, he decided that he wanted to be rich, but he had no way of doing it. And he realized that there are a lot of people that were rich in his country. They were diamond miners. They mined for diamonds and they sold diamonds. So he decided that's what he wanted to do for a living. So what he did is he went to his right in front of his house. He bought a shovel and he started digging for diamonds, but he couldn't find any. So what he did is he went across town. Now he brought some people with him to start digging for diamonds. But again, they couldn't find any diamonds. Now he had been doing this now for a couple of years, but he would not quit. So what he decided to do was to hire a whole crew, and they went across town, and then they went into the next city to mine for diamonds. But guess what? They didn't find any diamonds. So now like 10 years has gone by, right? He decides, you know what? I'm leaving my country. He went to a neighboring country, digging and digging for diamonds, but he couldn't find it. Now we go about 30 years later. Now he's getting old and frail, and he's in another country. He finds a new area, and they start digging and digging and digging, but find nothing. And then one day, as he was digging, he walked by a train track, and a train hit him. And unfortunately, he passed away. Never made any money. So what happened was someone bought his land. Someone bought his land, and the person that bought his land, a few months later, he's sitting in his backyard, and he looks at the little river that was going by, and he saw a lake rather, and he saw some shining stones. So he picked up one of those stones and looked at it and said, "This is different." He showed a friend of his, and his friend said, "This looks like a diamond." So he had it checked out, and wouldn't you know, it was a diamond. And he got people to come back and dig even more. They found diamonds. So he made some money. He used the money to hire more people to dig for diamonds, and they dug for diamonds, and they found acres and acres and acres of diamonds. And that man became the richest man in Africa. Now, the moral of the story is sometimes we go all over the place trying to find a solution to our problem, but the solution is right with us. We have the solution. We need to just look inward because it's there, instead of going elsewhere looking for it, right? We need to train ourselves, train our minds, right, to see it, because we have what it takes to be successful, right? So that's another story. That's another story. So now we're up to number 6. You want to paint a picture in your stories. You see how I took you to Africa? I painted a picture, right? I painted a picture. And then I painted a picture when he got to the stream, right? Or when the person was sitting in the backyard, I painted a picture. You want people to see the picture, right? All right. So number 7, you want to create anticipation. You want to create anticipation, right? So when I was talking about this story, and I was telling you he was in his country, and then he went to another country, and then you're wondering, where else is he going to go, right? Where else can he go, right? I created anticipation. You want to create anticipation. And your stories, by the way, you can do it when you're speaking one-to-one. You can do it on stage. When I tell stories on stage, it's the same things that I talk about, the same elements, right? You can do it on stage, but you want to create anticipation. All right. And then number 8 is, and this is especially important on a stage, right? You want to use vocal variety. Vocal variety. That means you don't want to be monotone. You don't want to say, well, one day this guy did this. Like, that's monotone. You want to go up and down. Why? Because you capture people's attention when you do that, right? You capture people's attention, right? I was speaking softly, and then when I talked about acres and acres, I got louder and louder, and that gets people more focused, right? So you want to use vocal variety. Go up, up and down, up and down, right? Vocal variety. All right. Number 9, you want to show feelings and emotion, right? Nothing wrong with laughing. I do it all the time, right? Nothing wrong with crying if it's an emotional story. If you're talking about, something that's emotional, like my dad, for instance, he passed away, God rest his soul, but he was a big influence in my life, right? Now I don't cry when I talk about him or when I think about him. I just, I smile, right? But it could be emotional, and it's okay if you show emotion. People are drawn into your story even more when you show emotion, right? When I talked about how the guy died, right? Now that could be emotional, right? And it gets people to focus in. All right, so that's number 9. And then lastly, you want to, let me see if I can highlight this now. I guess not, that's fine. All right, lastly, you want to give them a moral of the story, right? What can people learn from the story? There has to be a moral of the story, right? Because when you do that, you tie everything up. You tie everything up, right? So I told you the story of when I started in sales, right? And I started from the beginning when I wasn't doing too well. Then I ended where I was doing much better, right? But the moral of the story, which I told you, was that anybody can do it. Anybody can get good if they learn the skills, right? So you have to have a moral of the story. All right, so those are the 10 points that I want to share with you. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Thank you for being here. All right, there's a lot of people here. Coral, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Anthony, appreciate you. Let's see. Yes, appreciate you. Any questions? Do you say the moral of the story every time? Well, if you don't say the moral of, well, in some cases, it's so obvious you don't have to say it, right? In some cases, it's so obvious, right? Like if you, for instance, testimonials, right? If someone is giving you a testimonial, they don't have to tell the moral of the story. If they say, they were in this position, then they bought your product or your service, and now they're in a better position. That's the moral of the story, right? The moral of the story is get the offer, right? So you don't have to say it every single time, but that's a great question. Do you write your stories down? Absolutely. I write all my stories down. Here's the thing. You won't remember a story unless you write it down. The stories I use, I know it so well. Obviously, I don't have to read them. Obviously, I don't have to read them. I probably know 100 stories in my head, right? But initially, I wrote them down. You want to write them down, and you want to practice. You want to practice over and over. Make it succinct, right? So I can tell a powerful story in 1 minute or 2 minutes. You want to make it succinct. But that's a great, great question. Thank you, Coral. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Any other questions? This is exciting. You guys are asking great questions. Great questions. Any other questions? How do you get in the mental space to write your stories down? Okay, well, first of all, you're thinking about number one. Here's the thing. I always talk about whatever you do, you want to be able to get the same transformation that you're sharing with others, right? So people say, well, I have this great program, this great coaching program to help, to help people overcome depression or whatever, right? If you've gone through it, then it's easier for you to actually tell your story. Right. So it's it's to get into mental space of telling stories is basically when you just live it. You live it. Or you hear other stories and that inspires you. If it inspires you, you'll write it down and you'll want to know more. I had a client who was in insurance, and she said, well, I haven't sold any insurance yet, so I don't actually have any story of any of my clients getting a check if their loved one passed away. I said, well, okay. I said, do you work for an insurance company? She said, yeah. I said, well, I'm sure there are people in that. There are thousands of examples of testimonials. She said, yeah, but they're not mine. I said, they don't have to be, right? Find others. And then she did. She got about 3 of them. She wrote it down. And then those became the stories that she used until she had her own story. So great question. Great question. Appreciate it. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right. All right. Any other questions? These are great questions. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate you. Thank you, Coral. I appreciate that. That's great. That's great. Fantastic. I love that word, fantastic. I'm going to be using them more. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions about storytelling and how it's helped you, or you can share that, or if you just have a question as to, how to tell a story, whatever it is, I will be glad to help. Any other questions about storytelling today before we end the call? Anybody? Okay, well, while I'm waiting, make sure if you're not connected with Digital Mentors, make sure you connect with Digital Mentors. Okay, go to digitalmentors.com. You can try the 14-day trial, do the 14-day trial where you will learn so much. The videos alone are powerful. You will learn how to market your business. You will learn how to create a course. That I created my first course here. You will learn how to create coaching programs if you want to. That's my coaching program. I created it right here, right? So absolutely. Let's see. You said, do you have a class to help people? Yes, actually I do, Carl. I have a coaching program. If you want information on that, just go to successwitheric.com and click on work with me. Successwitheric.com, click on work with me, and you will find actually you will hear from a lot of testimonials. You'll hear a lot of stories, right? And then you can schedule a call to meet with me. Thank you so much, Cole. I appreciate that. And I'm sure other people were thinking the same thing. All right. Yes, David, I love stories too. Yes, I love stories. Do you try to incorporate the 10 elements? Good question, Mark. No, you don't have to incorporate all 10 elements, right? When I gave you the 10, I'm thinking about all the stories I've told, and I took those elements from there. But no, every story does not have to incorporate all 10. That's just way too much for you to do, right? But just make sure it has some of those elements. If you have a story and it's not inspirational, it's not persuasive, and people can't relate to it, I know right there, you know that you need to come up with a better story, or you need to fine tune your delivery, right? So to answer your question, no, it doesn't have to have all 10 elements. But if it has 4 or 5, then you're good to go. That's a good story. I'm sure it will be persuasive. Yes. Great question though. But you do not have to have all 10 elements. I try and give you everything. I try to give you all the value, right? And then you decide what you need, what you want to take out of there. But that is a fantastic question, Mark. You see, Carl, I'm already using that word. Fantastic. I love it. All right. Any other questions before we end for today? Yeah. So again, you want to connect with Digital Mentors, a great company, great leadership. I mean, I was actually in a high level coaching program with the founders of the company, and they were there with me, like literally on Zoom on a Thursday evening, helping me put together my offer. And then every week, we met again, and they would give me more information. And I had an event just a couple of weeks ago, a studio event. They helped me put the whole thing together. It was amazing. I had over 100 people there. So you want to definitely connect with Digital Mentors, learn and grow from this community. There's no other place better. All right. Remember my story of the guy from Africa who looked all over the place? Don't look all over the place. You have it right here, right? Stop looking for options. Stop looking for options. Well, maybe I can try this company. Maybe I can. No, this is it. Digital Mentors, right? They will help you. They've helped me. They've helped so many people. They've helped, I think, over 150 people create courses. Like, well, where else do you need to go, right? This is it. All right. So we will absolutely digitalmentors.com. So we'll wrap up. We'll wrap up right now. But I want to thank you all for coming on today. Definitely share this with others, right? We do this for free, so you might as well share it, right? Share it with others, pay it forward, let others understand the power of stories and how it can change their business and literally change their life. Right. So appreciate you. I look forward to being on this call whenever they invite me back, and to continue to share with all of you. And I'm very appreciative for what Digital Mentors has done for me. All right. With that said, it's been a plum pleasing pleasure to be with you today. Make it a great day. Bye-bye.